Release the Kraken!
Good afternoon, fellow game designers. This is Ron here with Lame Duck Studios. And as you can see, I am in a different program. I am in Blender 2.8. Now, I'm not a Blender user by any stretch of the imagination. Actually, I've been trying to switch to Blender for a while, primarily a Maya user. And I spent a bit of a weekend just kind of getting familiar with it. So the reason I'm in Blender is I have a request from Saeed Belouche, who is asking how to get a vehicle from Blender to Unreal, kind of like we did from Maya to Unreal. So, took a weekend, kind of dabbled a little bit, and tried to figure out how to do one versus the other. And it's really about the same sort of dealio. So I'm in Blender here, and I'm going to preface this with, I'm not a Blender user, so there may be some things that are better out there, but doing what I can with what I've got. So I'm in Blender 2.8. That's the latest release, and I'm going to go ahead and hit General here. And I'm not going to go with the controls of Blender because, well, hopefully if you're using it, you have familiarity. But we're in Blender, and one of the things you do want to do before you move anything from Blender to Unreal is to get your units set correctly. So that seems to be like the biggest hurdle, is making sure units are set right. So over to the right here, we have this toolbar. I'm going to come down to this little cone, sphere, and little cube thing. This is our units and scene settings. Let's go ahead and open that up and go to Units. And we'll make sure that we're in metric. It's in metric by default, but we want to make sure that we're also in the correct size. I believe you can do this also by changing metric to centimeters. I haven't tried, but you're welcome to. Because what we're going to do here, where it says unit scale, we're just going to, because right now it's in meters, we're just going to do 0.01, which is basically changing it to centimeters. Okay. So I assume flipping this will do the same thing, but I haven't tried. I'm going to come up here also, and let's see, where is it? Bear with me. Go ahead and press N, and that'll bring up your little toolbar here. I'm going to go down to View. And in here, I'm going to come down to focal length, and where it says and, you can see it's set to 10 meters. I'm just going to change that to 100 meters just so I have a little bit more room on my camera. If I don't do that, eventually my camera will start clipping. I'm going to close that down by pressing N again. And then right here, under Overlays, if I open that up, we have our grid scale. And I'm just going to set the grid scale also to 0.01 so that my grid matches my units. Alright, so basic setup. And I have this cube here. I'll go ahead and nuke that cube and just make another one. So to make another one, I'll do Shift A. It's going to bring up my add here. I'm going to do a mesh cube. And once I do that, I'm going to get this little dialog down here in the left where it says add cube. I'm going to hit the little arrow. And you don't want to click on anything, so if I click off, I'll actually lose that dialog. So you want to just make sure that you don't interact with anything. Okay, so let's go back and add that in again. In here, I just want to make sure that I have the proper size of my cube. I'm going to go ahead and change this from 2 centimeters to 100 centimeters or 1 meter. Either one works. So if I type 1m, that is 1 meter. Or if I do 100 cm, that's also 1 meter. Once I change that, I'm going to come over to the right here, and I'm going to click on this little orange square. If you don't see the orange square, that means your object isn't selected. I'm going to open that up. I'm going to change my scale, and that my scale size is 1 times however big my object is. So my object is currently 1 meter. Cubed, so that's 1 times 1 meter there. So I'm going to make it 3 meters wide, or sorry, that's my x. I'm going to make that 5 in the x. For my width, I'll do 3 meters, and then my height, I'll just do 1.5. This scaling doesn't really matter. I'm just picking some arbitrary values here. And then once I have my scale, I'm going to come up, and you can see we have object mode. I'm going to go down to edit mode. You can also get there by hitting tab. Okay. Oh, and one other thing we want to make sure we do while we're in here, and I should have done it earlier, but I didn't, is change this tab here from global to local. That way all of the units are in local coordinates because that's what Unreal wants to know. Okay. Alright, so in edit mode, I'm going to come up right next to edit, grab the edge selection, select this edge here, and I'm going to move that down. You can do that by grabbing this little move tool and move it down. That's perfectly valid. You can also hit the G key and then choose the axis you want, which is Z. And then you can also just move your cursor, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to do that. So now I have kind of like the same shape that we had in Maya. All right, I'm going to go ahead and click off. All right, so now I just want to hit Tab to get out of edit mode, go back to object mode. I'm going to go ahead and make a new object, Shift A. Let's go ahead and create a cylinder. And my cylinder pops in. Radius, I'm going to do 80 centimeters. You can see I've done this before, so just type in 80 cm. For my depth, I'm going to do 30 centimeters. And then I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees in the X. Okay, awesome. Then up here to the right, I'm going to hit the Z. It's going to put me in my Z orthographic view. I'm going to grab my cursor here, my little move tool. Let's go ahead and move this about where we want our wheel to be, like so. I'm going to go ahead and rename. I'm going to call this wheel front left. I'm going to copy that. To duplicate, I'm going to go ahead and select the object and do Shift D. And you can see how it's attached to my mouse here. Just hit Escape. I'm going to come in here and do a -Y. Whoops. If you ever run into this where for some reason it's not changing correctly, if you look, you can actually see that we have meters and centimeters being drawn. I guess maybe that's a bug or something. I'm going to come down to my scene settings. And let's make sure we uncheck Separate Units. And I'll go back to my object. Okay. Let's go ahead and reduplicate that. I'll do a -1. Or sorry, minus whatever's in the Y there. There we go. That's better. Call this front right. I'll do that for the other two. So Shift D. I'm going to drag the arrow, move that back. And I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I'm already here, so that's okay. I'm going to do this one as rear right. Shift D. And I'll change my -Y value to a positive Y value. Okay, so they're about all the same. Let's go to a side. Oh, let me go ahead and change that first. Before I do that, let's do rear left. All right, let's go to our side view. I'm going to hit this little X here. And then the Y. And you can see that our vehicle and our wheels are not quite on the ground, so let's go ahead and select the vehicle. I'm going to name that car body. So car body. I'll move that up above the grid here, above the center axis. And I'll go ahead and select all of my wheels. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go back to my Y view. Drag those up. Good enough. So this will probably go over to Unreal just fine, but I want to make sure that I clear out my transforms for the car body. So let's go ahead and select the car body. And you can see that we have our scale has been adjusted. We want to make sure that that is set back to 1. So to do that, come up to Object, come down to Apply, and then I do Apply All Transforms. And that's going to snap that down to the bottom there. And it's important for Unreal that we have X being forward, Z is up, and then Y is left and right. Our wheels should be the same as they are. Okay. Go ahead and select all 4 wheels, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to then select the car body and then Control P to parent. And I'm going to do a simple object parent, so the top one. So now my wheels and my car body are one thing. And all I want to do is export. So let's go up to File, Export Selection. Sorry, that's a Maya thing. We'll just go to Export and do FBX. Find wherever you're going to save it to. I'm going to save it to Blender. You can see I've made a few of these before. That was my weekend. I'll do FBX car. I'll do this one as tutorial. Yay. Now let's open up Unreal and get this bad boy working. So in Unreal, let's go ahead and pick a version. I'll do 4.23. Alright, so I'm going to do a blank project. This is my default that I set up, scalable, no content. And I'll call this Blender car tutorial create. Alright, so now we're in Unreal. Let's go ahead and make some folders here. Just two. I'm going to have one for the car. So I'll do car. And then I'll do another folder. We'll call this one blueprints. So in my blueprints folder, I need a game mode. So right click, blueprint class. Let's do a game mode base. So I'll call this Blender car game mode. And we'll add this. So edit project settings. I'm going to try to go a little bit quick just because this is pretty basic stuff. I don't want to get too bogged down in the details here. Blender car mode, game mode. And let's add our controls while we're here. So input, axis map, we'll add 2. Open those up. This will be move forward. And I'll use W for that. Add a key. This will be the S key to move backwards. Make that a negative value. This one is going to be move, or sorry, turn right. It's going to be the D key. And then our left is going to be A. Make that negative. Good enough for government work. Let's add our car. So go ahead and do a blueprint. So blueprint class. Let's get all classes, and we'll do vehicle. We're looking for wheeled vehicle. I'll call this Blender car. Now I need to get my car. So I'll go to my little car tab, import, and I'll grab my car, open. And from here, it's pretty much the same procedure as what we did in Maya. So we're just going to make sure we check skeletal mesh, hit import. We have our pieces. Let's go ahead and check them. Let's go ahead and open up our skeleton. If everything's done right, we should have our car body. Whoops. And then our bones. And your root bone should be on the ground. I don't think it really has to be, but typically if you come out of here, that should be fine. What's nice is Unreal makes all of your bones for you. So let's go to the physics asset. And in here, these little blue pills, see those? Let's go ahead and grab those. So grab that pill, that one, that one, that one, and that one. We're going to change these to a single convex hull. So over to the right, where it says primary type, or primitive type, we'll do change it from capsule to single convex hull. Hit regenerate bodies. That's that. Let's hit simulate. If everything works, it should be ready to go. Yay. If it doesn't work, just go back through and just try again. Double check, make sure what you're doing is the correct thing. We're going to add this to our blueprint. So car. So grab the vehicle, or sorry, the mesh. load in our mesh. There it is. Let's make a camera. I'll just do a spring arm. And then on the spring arm, I will add a camera. Make my spring arm long enough. I'll position it wherever and wherever. Good enough. Event graph. I don't need these. From my begin play, I do want to see the collision just to make sure, like if there's any mistakes or whatever. So I'll do an execute console command. I'm going to do the pxvis collision. So pxvis and then collision. Let's get our movement. So move forward and then move right or turn right. There's that and that. We want our throttle, so throttle, set throttle input vehicle. Cool. And this one's going to be set steering. Set steering input vehicle. I'll just share off the one that I have there. And then axis value to axis value. Okay, let's go ahead and do a quick save. Let's make our platform a little bit bigger. So details, I'll just do my X and Y, maybe 10 by 10. And before I can hit play and load my car in, let's make sure that it's on the game mode. So open the game mode up. To the right here, let's look at default pawn. We'll swap that out for our Blender car. Compile it and hit play. So there we go. So we have a car. And let's see, can we move? No, not yet. We still have to set up our tires. But our collision should be about where it needs to be. So that's all good. Let's go in to the car body. Vehicle movement component, set up our tires. So come down to, go ahead and close these here. Wheel setup. You do want to name your wheels. So just open all of these. And these are going to be in order of your skeleton. So if I go to the skeleton, my first one is my front left, and then front right, and then rear right, rear left. So wheel, front, left. So the first one is going to be wheel, front, left, and then wheel, front, right. And then we have our rear left, or sorry, our rear right. And then our rear left. So wheel, rear, left. So that should get all of our wheels talking. Go ahead and compile that. Play it. So now we can drive. Hey, look at that. Now our wheels aren't moving yet because, well, we didn't tell them. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's create a wheel class, so blueprint class. I type in wheel. Go down to vehicle wheel. And this is going to be a wheel, I'll just do front. And then I'll duplicate that. Call this wheel rear. Open up the front wheel. And what we want to do, so it may open like this or it may open as just the class default. It's fine. For the radius, we want to make sure that it is the correct dimensions, and we did a radius of 80 centimeters, so I'll just do 80, and we had a depth of, I think we did 30. So in Blender it was depth, and here it's width, but that should get the correct size. We'll do that for the rear wheel. Rear wheel. See, sometimes it opens like this, sometimes it opens the other way. This is going to be another 80 centimeters on the radius and then 30 on the width. And then for the rear, we don't need any steering angle, so we'll just turn that to 0. Compile it, save it, we'll set that to the wheels. So vehicle, inside of our wheel class here, let's do our front wheel on our front, and then the rear wheel on the rear. Rear and rear. Hey. So that's a little bit more accurate. May have to change the radius, or not the radius, but the width down. But I'll let you guys do that. But you can see that the ray trace is doing what it should be doing. So let's make sure that the wheels are actually going to update when we roll. Let's create an animation blueprint. So right click, animation blueprint. Choose our vehicle animation instance, and then our car body, or our car skeleton. Hit OK. I'll call this Blender car animation. Open that up. Let's see, off of that, what do I want? I want a wheel handler. So wheel, go ahead and uncheck that. And we're looking for wheel handling. That'll come in with our two components. And then we want our mesh bind pose. So mesh space reference. Let's go back to our Blender car. Select our mesh. And then right here where it says animation, animation class, Blender car animation, compile it. And now everything works, and we are good. So other than tweaking the radius of the wheels, everything should be fine. And that is how you can get, hopefully in very few minutes, a very simple vehicle from Blender to Unreal without even having to set up a skeleton, letting Unreal do the work for us. And if you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. If you liked it, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next tutorial.